Can we have a show of hands? Anybody involved in business in any form whatsoever? Hands up, please. Okay, can I now ask you to put your hands up again if you've ever had any problems in business? Hands up, please. Oh. Somebody had their hand down there, is that? Thank you. Okay, well here we are. We're going to solve those problems for you. So can I ask you to put your hands together for Marcus Kelvington? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Birmingham. I'm Marcus Kelvington. I founded Food Profits, and just quick show of hands for me if you came to this show because you wanted to see something new or see something different, or perhaps you maybe want to learn something new or learn something different. Fantastic, fabulous. That's pretty much all of you. So how are you today? Good or good? Pretty good? Okay, what I'm going to do, I want to try and give you as much possible value as I can cram in to the next 40 to 45 minutes. I'm going to suggest you make a few notes. So just show hands for me again, anybody that's kind of like struggled any time in your career, whether you've worked for yourself or you've worked for somebody else. Fantastic, yeah, pretty much most of us. And I just want to kind of share with you first of all today, I want to give you a pat on the back, if you like, because 80% of success is showing up. 80% of success is showing up. And I've got to tell you something, that in the time I've worked for myself, the first few years, quite early on in my career of being self-employed, I struggled. I really, really struggled big time. And I think I probably set up my own business thinking that all it would take was hard work to be successful. Anybody ever kind of thought that? Yeah? And what was quite interesting for me is the harder I worked, it didn't get any easier. Has anybody ever had that happen to them? Fantastic, a few of you. Now, you might be thinking, why on earth are you saying fantastic, because it isn't really that good, is it, to be perfectly honest? But I'll never forget, I was really struggling, a lot of pain, a lot of going on, and I'd see something, I thought to myself, this is it. This is what's going to turn it around for me. And I'd go away in direction, and it didn't work. And I'd see something else, and I'd go away, and that didn't work. And saw something else, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work, and that didn't work. But for the first time in my life, I was down. I was depressed, because I'm a pretty positive kind of guy, and nothing but nothing was working for me. And you see other people in businesses running pubs, hotels, restaurants doing really, really well. You kind of sometimes think to yourself, well, what is it about me that isn't working? Why am I doing all this stuff I'm working? I couldn't have worked any harder. I could not have worked any more hours. Anybody relate to this? Yes or yes? Fantastic. I'm glad you're smiling, by the way, I've got to tell you, because when you're in that position, you're not smiling, are you? If you were like me, I'm sure you are. You're not smiling, because like nothing's working. And I'll never forget, I was working in my office one day, and I'd been working about 13, 14 hours, and I'd almost felt like I'd gone about 5 or 6 steps backwards. I hadn't gone or made any particular progress whatsoever. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, do you know what? If I'd actually stayed in bed this morning, I actually wouldn't be any worse off. Probably wouldn't be any better off, but I certainly wouldn't be any worse off. And one of the things after that happened to me in a very, very short space of time was I discovered something. And what I discovered was, and this is quite deep, is I discovered that there was something or some things that I didn't know. And actually it turned out there's an awful lot of stuff that I actually didn't know. And I wanted to share with you earlier, before I get into the 7 problems in it, so I want to share with you one of the best pieces of advice I've ever had in my entire life on planet Earth, and it's this. You might want to write it down. Go and find people who know more than you do. Go and find people who know more than you do. Because what they'll do is they'll save you a ton of pain, a ton of time, a ton of energy, and a ton of money. So what happened to me quite a few years ago now is I went on a course, and that course changed my life, because what that actual course did is, what I discovered was there were certain things that I actually needed to do in my business to actually make the business successful and work. And having dealt with lots and lots of food businesses over the last sort of 10 years, what I found is that nearly all of them have struggles going on, and with all those struggles going on, about 7 problems contribute to nearly every single one of those struggles. So what I want to do with you today is I'm going to share with you what they are. Some of you are going to know what they are already. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about that. Then what I'm going to talk to you about is I'm kind of going to talk about what I would describe as help and hope, because there are things that you can do from tomorrow morning, or when you go back to your business, if any of you go back to your business tonight, this afternoon, that can actually start to turn that around quite quickly. And so my mission for this very, very short space of time we've actually got with each other today is I want to give you as much value and as much content, as much powerful information as you can take away and make a change to your business from tomorrow morning. So that's my mission for the next sort of 40-ish minutes with you. Okay, so first of all, first problem, probably no surprise to you whatsoever, staff. Now our industry is quite interesting because probably about 23 to 30% turnover of staff within our industry. Anybody ever had any staff problems? Quite right, fabulous. I don't mean that fabulous in a disrespectful way, because staff is the single biggest problem for most pub, restaurant, cafe, hotel owners. I don't know if any of you were here yesterday, but Peter Avis from Babylon Roof Gardens actually came up with some absolutely fabulous points about staff. Why is that? Why is our industry so high on staff turnover? Why? In about 10 minutes, I'm going to share and allude with you as to why that is. And the one thing, if you only take 2 or 3 things away from my 40 minutes with you today, ladies and gentlemen, that is one of the things to take away with you. So I'll allude to that in about 10 minutes. So staff, now imagine for a minute that if your staff were kind of doing what you wanted them to do and they're empowered and they were kind of positive and they're motivated, imagine how that would feel for you. Rather than being worried and stressed all the time, not knowing whether you can actually take a day off in your business because you just don't know whether actually the thing is going to actually work when you're off. Has anybody ever been in that position? I know I have many times. I'm glad you're smiling, thank you very much, by the way, that's good, because it's not kind of a thing to smile about really, is it? Okay, so, staff. Let's have a little look at the next one. Lack of customers. Now, lack of customers, again, is one of the biggest problems that we face whether we're in a pub, restaurant, cafe, hotel. And only recently near me there's been 3 restaurants closed, 2 cafes closed, and again imagine that if you've got more customers coming in the door, and if there's any of you sat in here thinking, well actually, do you know what, Marcus, I'm full every single day, I'll address a little bit later as to actually how you might want to think about the target market you're actually looking at, and I'll get into that a little bit later. So lack of customers is the second biggest problem for most pub, restaurant, cafe and hotel owners. And that was certainly one of my problems years ago. The next one I want to talk to you about is cash flow and fear of bankruptcy. Just a bit like me, you're working all the hours and just nothing was working. Every month or every week you're just worried, stressed about how you're actually going to pay all the bills. And if you all, like me I'm sure, have got enough money to pay yourself at the end of the month when you're running your business. So cash flow and bankruptcy. Imagine if you got enough cash coming in every month, you're happy. What peace of mind will that actually give you? Problem number 4 is cost too high. And you'll all know these, I'm sure, but things like your gas is too high, electric's too high, water's too high, staff costs too high, you're paying too much for your food costs. All those things that contribute to this big problem that most pub, restaurant, cafe, hotel, fast food caterers have. Costs are always too high. I'm going to allude a little bit later to a few things you can think about just to take away today will actually make a massive difference to that. Okay, next one, food wastage. Food wastage in our industry is massive, you probably know that. I mean, some of the businesses that I currently deal with have in excess of 10% food waste, which is huge. The amount of money that we're losing is just huge. In our industry, we probably want to be somewhere between the age of about 4 and 6% food wastage, but lots and lots of food being thrown away. Again, imagine what you could do if all that food was being thrown away and wasted could actually be used to make more profit in our businesses. And I'll allude to a few things on that in a few minutes. The next one, just not making enough money. Yeah, just show your hands to me please, anybody in here, just if there's absolutely anyone, it probably isn't anybody, but just hands up if you'd like to make any more cash. No, there's a couple of ladies down here shaking their heads going, no Marcus, I don't want to make any more cash. Okay, well again, a lot of the owners that I deal with, one of the biggest things is, you know, a bit like me, I'm working 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 hours a day even, not making enough money. Wouldn't it be great if we could make a bit more money? So I'll give you a few pointers towards that a little bit later. And again, we live in a society now, who has got lack of time? What, a bit more time? Yeah, none of us have ever got any time these days, have we? We're always firefighting, always being distracted, There's always something going on in business, and the owners that I work with, they nearly always say that I need more time. More time, more time, more time. Because we've never got enough time to do anything. It's quite interesting, we live in sort of 2015 now, and more technology at disposal than ever, but less time to use any of that. And again, imagine if you could just take a day off. I know it was like that for me. What could you do if you just had a day or two off? More time spent with your friends, your family, your spouse, your partner. Really, really, really important, but most of us just don't have enough time. Is everybody with me so far? Yes or yes? Fabulous, thank you. Okay, so what's quite interesting for me is, with all the owners that I've dealt with over the few years, is what I describe as some commonalities. And when I talk about commonalities, just a few things, because most of the people I deal with are, I'd probably describe as maybe a little bit reserved, a little bit cautious, a little bit shy, but what they also all have in common is they have a love of food, a passion to give the customers a good experience when they actually come and eat and drink with them. And they also had, at some point in their life, if not now, but certainly in the past, a dream. Whatever it was that was your dream, whether you're working for somebody else and you kind of want a dream, you want to be a great chef, you want to be the next Heston Blumenthal, Jason Atherton, maybe it was you wanted to be the best waiter or waitress, maybe you just wanted to run a pub, and it was always been your dream. There's an owner I deal with near where I live in Nottingham, and he was a chef in the army for 20 years, and his dream when he left the army as a chef was, he just wanted to run his own cafe, and he wanted to make fabulous cakes and just get people to come in and buy his cakes. He had a dream, so just show hands for me if you've ever had a dream. Fantastic, straight up there, sir, thank you very, very much. Right, because whether you work for somebody else, just go back to the time, just take a minute, just before I get into giving you a few solutions to these problems, just close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes, just stay with me on this one, just close your eyes, and just go back to the time, fabulous, just go back to the time that wherever you're working at the moment, or whatever dream you had, like this gentleman just down here, put his hand up in about half a millisecond, what was your dream? What was it? Might still have one now. Maybe just to run a great pub, a great little cafe bistro, maybe a hotel. You wanted to do your thing, you're excited about it, weren't you? I'll guarantee you that whenever that day was, you're excited, you had enthusiasm, you had passion. You can open your eyes again now, please, if you would. Thank you very, very much. Now, the reason for me getting you to do that is twofold, really. The first thing is, I want you to take yourself back to that day. Whenever you work for somebody else, or whenever you wanted to run your own business, whatever that business might have been, you're excited. I'll guarantee you're excited. I'll guarantee you had a lot of enthusiasm, and I guarantee that you got kind of some passion going on in your heart somewhere. Anybody relate to this? True or true? Fantastic. Right, now what often happens is, which is what happened to me, which is why I just want to share my struggle and pain story with you, just for a minute or two while I get started today, was the fact that these 7 problems come along and kind of dampen it. Kind of, we're working all the hours, we just don't seem to make any progress. You might want to write this down, something I learned a few years ago, is progress equals happiness. Whether it's health, wealth or relationships. Because we've only got 3 areas in our life, health, wealth and relationships, 3 areas only. If you're not making any progress in any of those areas, you will start to feel down. So, what I want to do with you, just in this very short space of time that we've got with each other today, is I just want to talk to you about the one thing that changes absolutely everything. Just one thing, and it's this: training and education. Because when I was struggling a few years ago, the one thing I actually learned was, in order to do better, we need to know better. Which is why I shared with you a few minutes ago the best piece of advice I've ever had, ever in my life, was go and find people who know more than you do. So, training and education is what will turn it around for you. So, let me just get into a few things on help and hope. And I'm going to talk quite quickly now, so if you're making notes or using iPads or anything like that, I'm going to go quite quickly. The first thing is staff. Now, who's ever had a staff problem? Quite a few of you. Right, okay, fantastic. Right, I'm going to share with you 3 things, just 3 things that you really need to be aware of, some of you will know this, that will contribute to having happier, productive, passionate, profitable people. There's 3, and money isn't one of them. Because money comes forth. Some of you probably knew that already. Now the first thing whenever we go to work, so when everybody comes to share with you in your restaurant, pub, hotel, cafe, whatever it is food business you're running, the one thing we're doing is we're contributing, we want to contribute. So you might want to write that down. You might be thinking, what on earth is this guy talking about contribution? We all have a mission. We want to do something that contributes. Now I'm also going to share with you now the second reason that people go to work, the second reason every single one of you goes to work, just like I do, every single day. You might never have realised this before. But by the way, when I said 10 minutes ago I was going to allude to the single biggest reason that people leave our industry, this is it. Lack of appreciation. It's the single biggest reason that we've got between 23 and 30% turnover of staff in our industry. Lack of appreciation. That's the second biggest reason. And for those of you who did see Peter Avish yesterday from Babylon Roof Gardens, he alluded to some of the things they actually did down there. But lack of appreciation. So I just want to cover off as many nuggets as I can with you during these 7 problems, and there's a lot of other things on staff, but just think about where you can actually appreciate staff. What can you do about it to actually make people feel good about themselves? Because I have a great phrase, and it's this: if you believe in people, people begin to believe in themselves. You might want to write that down. And I ask you to ask yourself this question when you go away from here today, just on a few tips that I want to give you on staff, is ask this question to yourself: are you consistently complimentary, or are you consistently critical? Because it's going to make a massive difference to your business. The third reason people go to work is because they want to know that their contribution is part of the overall vision and where your business is going to. Now that was a massive surprise for me a few years ago, because I kind of thought, hey, hang on a minute, this is my particular business. Staff are just coming to work for me. Why do they need to know what I want to achieve? What do they want to know what my vision is, where I want to go to? They do. Because they feel part of you and part of that contribution to be making a difference and making progress. Does this make sense? Yes or yes? Fantastic. So if you only take a few things away from my very short space of time with you, ladies and gentlemen, today, that is one of the things I want you to take away with you. Right, let me also now just move on, because time's going to fly today, I know it is. Lack of customers. 2 things I want you to think about when you go away from here today on lack of customers. Because again, it's one of the biggest reasons that businesses fail. Often people say, well, it's cash flow and bankruptcy, Marcus, isn't it? It's cash flow the problem, this is why my business fails. It's actually not. Because if you haven't got enough of the right type of customers in your business, you don't need to worry about cash flow. So we need to make sure we've got the right type of customers in our business. So 2 things I just want to share with you today on this little bit. The first one is, with your marketing, is, are you doing any? And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I was working with a couple of ladies running a cafe not that long ago, and they spent a shed load of money on the premises, the furnishings, the tables, the chairs, the ceilings, the lights. And we sat down there and they sort of said, you know, how much have you put aside to actually market your business to get people into the cafe? And they said, well, we haven't, Marcus, we haven't put anything aside. And we sort of had a little bit more of a discussion, and they sort of said to me, well, people will just come in, won't they? Will they? Will they? So the first thing I want you to think about when you think about lack of customers is, do you do any marketing? And the second part is, can you measure it? Can you measure it? So is it measured? What do I mean by that? If it's not measured, you can't manage it, so you need to think about how you measure it. And the other thing I ask you to think about within lack of customers is, think about who is your ideal customer. Whether you've thought about that or not before, who is your ideal customer? Because all the message that Hugh talked about yesterday needs to be focused on that customer. And again, I thought that if you appeal to everybody, you'll get more customers in the door, but you won't do. Very, very specific. Think about who your ideal customer is. Because if you've got more customers in the door, more of the right customers in the door, cash flow becomes secondary. Cost too high becomes secondary. A couple of things just to think about. Okay, so let's think about cash flow and fear of bankruptcy, because there's quite a lot on here that you might think about. Now, in our industry, we're actually quite lucky. I don't know whether you've ever thought about this before, but you might be thinking, what, lucky? I've always got cash flow problems, a bit like I had a few years ago. This was one of my big problems, running my business. It was like too much money going out the door, not enough money coming in the door. You know, what do we do about it? Now, in our industry, when somebody comes to eat or drink with us, they pay us straight away, don't they? Unless we give them such a bad meal that they go, Marcus, I'm not paying you. But apart from that, it doesn't really happen, because they pay us straight away. So we've got money coming in all the time, haven't we? We don't have to invoice anybody. We don't have to follow them up 30 days if we're in a pub restaurant club. We don't have to, because they're paying us when they come and eat and drink with us, don't they? Yes or yes? True or true? Yeah? True or true? So if we can do a few things to actually help the cash flow, we should be in a whole lot better, stronger, more powerful position to actually run our businesses. So I'm going to give you a few things here. I'm going to try and give you as much as I can today. Right. Have arrangements with your suppliers. Now, I know it sounds like common sense, but have you got credit arrangements in place with the suppliers that you use? Or do you have to pay them straight away? So look at the suppliers that you're using and credit to them if you actually got those suppliers. Think about that. I know it sounds like common sense, but again, in my business, often I find that common sense isn't common practice. So just think about that for a moment. How big a menu have you got? Because the bigger the menu you've got, the more you're going to struggle. You've probably heard this from lots of other people before, but please don't have massive menus, smaller menus, because that's really going to help your cash flow as well. A couple of other things to help cash flow is how big's your stock holding? So if you've got lots and lots of stock in your fridge, your chillers, your dry stores, think about that for a second. And I ask you to write this down, please, as well. One thing to take away. I'm sure some of you do this every day, day in, day out. Again, some of the businesses I work with, you again assume that they're going to do it, but they don't do it. Do you know what your food stock turnover days are? So how long is something in your chiller or your fridge before it actually turns over and actually goes out on a customer's plate? Think about that, because they make massive difference also to your cash flow. I've just recently worked with 3 different chefs, and not one of them knew how much some of the dishes costed. Just not one of them knew that. Now, that might be really surprising for some of you might not be surprised. And what's quite interesting for me is those chefs have all been chefs for over 20 years, and they didn't know the cost. I know, exactly, sir. And yeah, I know you know the cost inside out, which is cracking. But some people just don't. So again, things to think about for cash flow. Imagine how you'd feel if you knew that every single month your cash flow was sorted. You'd have more peace of mind, you'd be happier, you'd know that you could take some time off and go and do some other stuff. You'd just be able to sleep at night. I know when I was struggling big time, I had so many sleepless nights. Anybody ever had any sleepless nights before? Right, yeah, sir, thanks for smiling. I mean, it's not smiling, is it, when it's kind of happening to us? But it happens. So imagine that your cash flow was sorted out. How much peace of mind would you actually have? So a few things for you to think about cash flow. Okay, just moving on to the next one, cost too high. A few pointers for you again on this one, because again in our industry, you talk to most people complain about costs being too high. And first thing I say is know your numbers. Again, lots of people don't. What are your fixed costs? So what goes out every single month, regardless of whether anybody comes to eat and drink with you? Do you know it? I'm sure you do, but it needs to be etched into the cells of your subconscious mind. How much do we need every single month to break even before anybody comes into our business? Fixed costs, overheads. The other thing I want you to think about on costs is, and again I talk to a lot of chefs that kind of this sort of happens just by nature, is coming in the morning, put all the gas burners on, and you're using like gas, and then you've got a massive big gas gentleman down here just smiling at me. I'm sure it doesn't relate to you, sir. But lots and lots of wasted gas. Same with water, exactly the same thing. You know, pot washing going and water just being used all the time. Bills going up, bills going up, bills going up. Think about that. Think about some of your food costs that you might want to look at other suppliers again and just evaluate actually where your food costs are. Because often in our industry, again, people are what I describe as fixated on food costs, gas costs, water costs, staff costs. Have you got staff on when you're quite quiet? There's a lot of labour saving systems out there now, a lot of software systems will save you a ton of money with having like scheduled staff rotas for different times and different periods of the day and different times of the year, which again will save you a lot of money. So quite a few things you can do on that one. The other thing I'd actually think about on costs again, which is what I just mentioned too with the ladies that were running the coffee shop that I was talking about a little bit earlier that I was dealing with, working with a few weeks ago, is how much money do you spend on what I describe as the physical things? So the lights, the carpets, the tables, all those things that make your place really nice, but ultimately cost you a lot of money. And I ask you to think about that today, because again it's another way of keeping costs down. And I remember 2 years ago, it's a very, very show, I had the pleasure of watching David Moore that runs 2 Michelin star restaurants down in London, one's Pierre de Terre and one's Lutre Pied. And I had quite a long chat to David that day, and David said something quite interesting for me, and I just want to share this with you today because it's really quite poignant, is people would rather go out and have an okay meal with fabulous ambience and service and feeling than they would go out for a fantastic meal to a place with a surly waiter or waitress that's actually spent a ton of money on their fixtures and fittings. And I thought that was actually quite poignant, very, very, very true. So, things to think about with costs too high. Okay, let's have a little look now at food wastage, because again, this is just another massive opportunity really in our business, but for a lot of us it's a problem, but it's an opportunity at the same time. So, think about, it should be in the order of about 4 and 6, maybe about 5 if we take it as an average. And a lot of businesses I deal with are in excess of 10. So we've thrown a ton of stuff away where we could be making more revenue and more profit in our businesses. So, few things to think about. You might want to write some of these away. How big are the portions that you give customers? How big are the portions? Because if you give a big portion, particularly, and some of you just know this inside out, but some of you in here won't, so I want to share it with you. And for those that you do know it, again, great phrase I learned a few years ago is this: repetition is the mother of skill. Repetition, repetition, repetition. And how big are the portions that you're giving a customer? Because if you're getting a big portion main course, highly likely the customer will never order a dessert, which means again that you're losing revenue. And they probably, if they know you, like there's a little restaurant that I live near in Cashflow, Nottingham. It's called Numero Duo, and it's run by a lovely Italian chef. And whenever you go, he gives you the massive big main course, which is lovely, don't get me wrong, but yet I've never ever been to his restaurant ever finished the main course, ever. Now, you might think, well, that's really, really good, Marcus, but the thing is, I now know when I go to his restaurant, I'm never going to order a starter, and I'm never going to order a dessert. Why? Because I'm not going to eat them, so it's kind of going away. So as an owner, you aren't maximising revenue. So again, food wastage, think about smaller portions. The other thing I think about, or ask you to think about, is, and one of the things I do is monitor what comes back on the plate from your customers. What are you throwing away? There's a gentleman named John Wood who you might know, used to be the executive chef at the Burj in Dubai, you know, the big one with the sail. And he has a great phrase, I'll share this with you today, is that the only things that should be outside your food business are eggshells and cardboard. Now, I probably wouldn't want to order or eat onion skins or things like that, would I? But his point is that think about what you're throwing away. So can you use some of that food prep to actually put into other dishes? There's lots of ways to waste less food, ladies and gentlemen. Right, time is flying here. Not making enough money. A few things for you. Again, I'll ask you, what is your break even? Do you know your numbers? Look at the customers coming through your door. When I say this, I mean this in a very, very respectful way. Are they the right type of customers for you? Because if you're running, let's say, a pub, lots of pubs now doing 2 meals for £10, aren't they? Yes or yes? If the food costs you nothing, the most amount of money you're going to make is £10. So you might be absolutely ram-jam-packed full every day, but you're still got cash flow issues, you're still not making enough money. So think about your target market. Have you got the right type of customers actually coming into your business? There's only 2 real ways that customers can actually give you more money, if you like. That's the first thing. You need to get them back more often, frequency, so how can you get them back more regularly? And the other thing to think about, how can you get them to spend more money with you? 2 things to think about. The other thing that works quite well with some of the business I talk to is suggest 1 or 2 drinks ideas or different things within the menu. So if you've got some main courses, drink suggestions, that actually will help, again, earn you more money. And whilst I'm just on this, the 2 things I really want you to take away from this little bit on not making enough money is we are fixated in our industry with cutting costs. Now don't get me wrong, cutting costs is important, but we're fixated with it. So think about how you can increase your revenues, increase your profits. It's more important to spend the time increasing revenue, increasing profit. Because if we can do that, costs, not a problem. Cash flow, bankruptcy, not as big a problem. Now don't get me wrong, it's important to focus on cost, but if you listen to most people who talk about this will save you 3%, this will save you 5%. Important, yes, not as important as focusing, and I choose that word deliberately, on how we can actually get more revenue and profit. Let me just move on to the next one, because I want to give you a couple of things before we actually go here today. Serious lack of time. Quick little exercise I'm going to share with you to take away and do this. You might have done it before. Focus on the important things, is what I've described, to start with. What I'd also, one of my favourite phrases is block time. Do the important things first, because we live in a world, it's interesting what I'm doing a talk on stage here, because we're being distracted all the time. We're being distracted visually, which is why I asked you to close your eyes in that little what was your dream exercise earlier, and we're also being distracted auditory. Tons of noise going on around here. Now, quick pointer, some of you may never have heard of this before, but your environment is stronger than you are. The reason I say that to you is because you'll be distracted all the time and you'll never have enough time like I would. So, focus on what's important, block time. Block time. Quick exercise I'm going to share with you. When you go away from here today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, take 2 sheets of paper. On the first sheet of paper, write down all the tasks that you have to do in your business every single day. And then get yourself another piece of paper and put a line down the middle from top to bottom. And on one side put down the tasks that you as an owner or manager should be doing, and on the other side of the paper put down all the tasks that your staff and employees ought to be doing, and then put a system in place to actually monitor and progress that first. That will give you more time than anything else I have ever done in my entire life. Yeah, focus, 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 because otherwise we'll always be distracted, we'll never have enough time. And imagine if you got more time, your staff are empowered, you could just take time off with your loved ones. Go and pick your kids up from school. Just have more time with your spouse and your family and your friends. How would that feel? Instead of always being running around 120 miles an hour. Right, ladies and gents, we're already at 11:45. Couple of things I just want to share with you today. As a thank you, if you like, for coming here today, we at Food Profits want to give you, each and every one of you, something just to take away. On the screen here, there's a website which will take you straight to this report, which is the 7 Biggest Problems report. It's a free report that we put together. If you can't get on Wi-Fi here today, if you text your first name and email address to this number on the screen here, we'll actually send you a link to get this report. So each and every one of you can have a copy of this free report on the 7 problems, with lots and lots of ways to actually help address those problems. 07788 970 331, or if you go to that, you'll be able to just download that particular report straight away for you. It's just our way of just saying a big thank you to you for actually being here. Just before I wrap up in a few minutes, because I want to take any questions from anybody, I just want to also share with you the single most important thing to be aware of to run a successful pub, restaurant, cafe, hotel, fast food, whatever business you're in, whatever you're doing. Just the single biggest reason, if you don't take anything else away other than 2 or 3 things I've talked about on staff and customers, this is one thing to take away from you. And I'm going to say it 3 times. It's how you make people feel. It's how you make people feel. I'll say it again. It's how you make people feel. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about giving people a feeling when they come and eat and drink with you that is so powerful and positive that they just can't wait to come back and eat and drink with you again. They just can't wait. And I ask you to go away with that today, because it's how you make people feel. And ultimately what you want to do, and what I sort of teach the businesses I deal with, is you want to give people what I describe as a wow, a kind of a wow feeling. Has anybody ever been at that kind of a wow? Yeah? Yeah? Has anybody ever had a wow with a partner recently? Come on, you must have done. Come on. Right, so let me just share you a quick little story with you, because my time is running out here. I was at Indian restaurants a few years ago now. It was probably back in about 2007, something like that. And I was with the head of scores on the doors, actually, the lady that set scores on the doors up. Most of you know scores on the doors are. The hygiene rating website probably gets about 3 million hits a month now before people go out to eat to make sure that you're a hygienic business. And I was actually with them, went into a restaurant in Cambridge, and we'd ordered our main courses, we'd sat down, and we're having a lovely meal. Food was fabulous, the ambience was fabulous, and about 10 minutes into the main course, the owner comes over to our table with the head chef, and he brings us 2 main courses. And of course our immediate reaction was, oh no, we've got all our food, it's beautiful, it's really, really nice, but we're okay, we've got everything. And he said, no, he said, these are complimentary, they're on the house, because we take such pride and passion in some of the chef's specialities we actually produce here in this restaurant. We just want you to try them. And I went, wow, really? He said, yes, and they're absolutely complimentary on us, no charge. We know they're quite big portions as well, you've got your main courses, so if you can't eat them all, it's okay. And I went, wow. Wow. And I have told that story across the whole of the United Kingdom many, many times in the last few years, because it gave me a wow. And to this day, that has very rarely happened to me when I go out to eat. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh my goodness me, how much is that going to cost me? Think of it this way. how much is it going to gain you? Because I've just told it now to about 200 people in here with all the people at sides. But think about how you make people feel. I also want to leave you with this today just before I wrap up, and it's this. Think about in your business or whatever you do, is think about how you can add more value than anybody would ever expect to receive from you. How can you add more value to what anybody would ever expect to receive from you? Because if you can do that, you won't need to worry about cash flow. You won't need to worry about customers in it. They become what I would describe as raving fans of your business. Raving fans, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, just for me to wrap up, because time's running out here. Best way to address the 7 problems is think of them as opportunities, because they actually are opportunities. Think back to the time when you started, you know, the vision you had, the dream you had, the excitement you had, the enthusiasm you had. Think about what it'd be like to have that again. You could take time off, you can go on holiday with your children. I didn't have holiday for years, because 1, I had no money, cash flow was a problem, 2, I didn't have enough customers, 3, my costs were too high, I just never had enough time, ever. Don't bury your head in the sand is something I also want to share with you today, because most of the owners that I find in our industry are a bit like me really a few years ago, embarrassed to ask. We just don't want to ask, because we kind of feel that everybody else knows the answer apart from us. Yeah, and that isn't the way. I have kind of a bit of philosophy, is the only silly question is the question that you don't ask. Don't be afraid to go out there and ask the question. Don't bury your head in the sand. Training and education will get the excitement back. Training and education will get the enthusiasm back. Training and education is really what it's all about. Finding out what you don't know so you can actually put in place and actually turn things around for you. And I'll leave you with this, just before I wrap up. One of my mentors, again it was Peter yesterday, talked about having mentors or having people that kind of actually relate to you and that you can learn from, and I advocate that so strongly, whatever you do. Is great phrase, and it's this. Because a lot of us are embarrassed to ask, because we don't, we feel a bit shy, we don't feel confident, we might just think, oh my goodness me, everybody knows this, and I'm going to look an idiot. No, you're not. And here's a great phrase. Ask for help. Ask for help, not because you're weak, but so you can remain strong. And I'll just leave you with my mantra today. For today and every day, be the very best that you can be for yourself, for your staff, and for your customers. Thank you for listening.